Today we're going to be ranking every thrill coaster that I've ridden. Do be warned, I have some really unpopular opinions in this list. Anyways, to keep the video shorter, let's just get into it. Okay, this is one of my really unpopular opinions. This is probably one of the only bad coasters I've ever ridden. You all might be very confused, like, it's a GCI, how is it bad? For one, it's rough. I know it isn't always rough, but it really bothers me, because I have not ridden a single smooth GCI. But this is where I get confused, because as you can see later on the list, I actually like pretty rough coasters. I don't know what it is about this one. This ride was closed for a really long time, like a few months, probably like this whole summer, so it might have gotten a retrack by then. So when I get back to Magic Mountain, I'll be sure to ride it again. Okay, the second thing, and the reason this ride is all the way down here, okay, not really, but kind of yes, is the restraints. What? Oh, but it's a normal GCI Millennium Flyer train. Well, if that's so, then I hate every single Millennium Flyer train in existence. For some reason, this restraint is just like higher than every other lap bar restraint ever in the world. And it hurts my hip bones. Anyways, next up we have Grizzly. Most of you might understand why this is here. This is one of the most boring wooden coasters in all of existence. Or so I've been told. I promise I'm not like a hater on wooden coasters. There's a wood coaster in my top 5. At least it's not rough like Apocalypse. Now this is where things start getting better. This is Patriot at California's Great America. I don't know what to say about this ride. It's just kind of forceless. I feel like every single bit of track that isn't the inversions is just filler track, but that's just me. The corkscrew in the front and back especially are great. It's cool to see how far B&M has come from this ride and the other rides later on in this list. This is Goliath at Six Flags Magic Mountain. This ride is such a joke. It's so sad how Six Flags Magic Mountain, Six Flags' favorite child, got a hypercoaster from Giovanola. Like, look at this drop, it's so shallow. But I still think this ride is underrated. Sure, it barely has airtime, but I think the point of this ride wasn't to be a good ride, but just to get the crowds in. Which is also kind of sad because you also could have gone with the B&M Hyper, which has more capacity. Anyways, I think the lack of airtime is made up with the amount of positive Gs. This thing pulls more positive Gs than Scream, which is supposed to pull positive Gs, but instead pulls more negative Gs than Goliath, which is kind of funny if you ask me. Demon at Great America is a narrow custom looper. It probably gives like the most amount of stomach dropping feeling on the first drop from what I've experienced. The vertical loops aren't that forceful, but they're kind of fun. The Demon Rock serves as a really good head chopper, and the corkscrews are pretty floaty. I really like this ride because it has some pretty big drops for the first half of the ride, and it's a terrain coaster, so that also makes it interesting and memorable. The vertical loop is really fun, but I feel like the rest of the layout isn't wasted. A lot of you might trash on me for having this ride ranked so low, but the thing is, I just find this not very memorable. It's just that forgotten B&M invert in the back of the park. Seriously, there were times when I was at Six Flags Magic Mountain and I forgot this ride existed. I don't think I can recall like at least 3 memories where I was on this ride. But with that being said, the layout is still really good and intense. The vertical loops pull the positive Gs, including the helix, and the 0G roll and the corkscrews are really whippy. I am convinced that this is just Batman the Ride, but a floorless, and it's taller. It's just as forgettable. I feel like more people are accepting this ride as it is, and it's honestly not that bad. I feel like everyone says this ride is underrated, but then whenever everyone says it's underrated, it's not even going to be underrated anymore. Viper at Six Flags Magic Mountain is without a doubt the most intense roller coaster I've ever ridden. Those vertical loops go hard. The entry into the mid-course brake run gives strong ejected airtime in every single row on the ride. Finally, the Batwing and the corkscrews give really good hang time. Okay, this has to be one of my most unpopular opinions to date. I have made like a 3-minute long video discussing on why I really like Kong, but I know none of you are going to watch the video, so I'll give you the gist of it. Okay, it has potholes, it's rough, but it doesn't hurt. I don't know why people talk trash about the restraints so much. I think the restraints benefit the ride. The soft pads that rest next to your ears are like pillows that prevent pain. The layout is really fun and forceful. Honestly, I just do not get the hate. This is unironically the smoothest wooden coaster I've ever ridden. The buzz bars provide for really fun flow to airtime that gets you lifted like inches out of your seat. This is just a classic ride, what else can I say? This isn't as an unpopular opinion as some other ones such as Kong, but I actually like stand-up coasters. I mean, if you know how to ride it, it does not hurt at all. Anyways, back to the ride. Basically every element on the ride gives really good flow or airtime, with the exception of the corkscrews, which are really whippy. Okay, this ride would be so much higher if the comfort collars did not exist. I think it's how tall I am, because my head is like the exact height of where the comfort collars are, so I get ear banging like every single turn. But disregarding the comfort collars, this ride actually has a really good layout. This ride is probably the best example of the most variety of forces on any ride I've ridden. Airtime on the hills and the high fives, hang time on the stalls, and positives on the helices. This ride would be ranked so much higher if the comfort collars were not there. Okay, here's my question. Why do people hate boomerangs so much? The one at Discovery Kingdom that I rode was just as smooth as Demon, and people group it with the SLCs, which maybe I can see why people don't like SLCs because of the headbanging and how rough it is, but boomerangs are nowhere near that. Maybe it's cloned at Six Flags parks everywhere, but then who's actually gonna go out and ride all those boomerangs? If you don't like boomerangs and SLCs, just don't ride them. Problem solved. Anyways, little rant over. This would probably rank near Demon if it only went forwards, but because of that backwards section, it makes the ride a whole lot better. Going through those elements backwards is so fun. I honestly don't know how people can get tired of it. At one spot ahead of Boomerang, I have Medusa at the same park. The reason I have this ranked more than Scream is because it has more standout elements. For example, the first straight drop, the zero G roll with one of the most intimidating coaster noises of all time, and the Sea Serpent roll, which is unique to a B&M floorless coaster. These Skyrocket 2 clones are actually kind of underrated to me. That's until I ride one with comfort collars, of course. In the back, you get a very strong pop of airtime going off that drop, and when you're in the front row going up the structure, it's just like going in the drop in reverse. The hang time on the zero G roll dangles you from 150 feet in the air, which is really fun, and that non-inverting loop just exists. Okay, the gap between quality in each of these rides is getting closer and closer. This is where the rides start getting real good. Anyways, this is Flight Deck at California's Great America, basically one of the most intense inverts in the world. The only other B&M invert that I've ridden is Batman the Ride at Magic Mountain, which I rank way lower. I think this ride just has much more character, and it's less forgettable when it's over a lake and you're going over a corkscrew that's insanely whippy. I really have a sweet spot on this ride for some reason. Sometimes I think it's better than Railblazer, but sometimes I don't. Sure, it's short, but so is literally every single other ride in the park other than Grizzly. I feel like this is the only ride where every single row is a 10 out of 10. Sit in any of the middle rows, get insane hang time on the zero G roll. You sit in the back and you get to the highest point of the ride on that spike. And you sit in the front, you get the best view and the most whip going to the zero G roll. This ride had basically no lines, so I just marathoned it the day I rode it. This ride is kind of overrated for me. Sure, I can appreciate the elements it has, which are really good elements. The drop, the dive loop, the twisted hill, and that second drop are all amazing. But that's kinda it. I see people ranking this ride way higher than it should be. 4 elements is not enough to make like a world-class elite roller coaster. But that being said, this ride is still amazing. See, I ranked it at my number 6 spot. A ride that's overrated to a ride that's severely underrated. People say that you don't get flips on Batman the Ride at Discovery Kingdom, but I can disagree with that. All you have to do is ride by yourself, that's it. And then I got like 4 or 5 flips. I cannot really explain how the flips feel, they're just so fun. Everything's so disorienting, the stalls, the flips, and the drops. They're amazing. People say that this ride is luck-based and you only get like 4 flips on a good day, but every single ride I've done, I got like 3 flips and 2 stalls, or just 4 flips and like 1 stall. It's amazing. From an underrated coaster to another underrated coaster. This is Wonder Woman Fighter Courage. This ride definitely has the most quantity of airtime of any coaster I've ridden. But is that airtime good quality-wise? Yes, of course it does, in my top 5. The first drop, the dive loop, the camelback, the zero G stall, the drop off the turn, the zero G roll, every single element is literally a standout element. It's amazing. Honestly, the first half of the ride is one of the best sequencing on any roller coaster, basically anywhere. But we can't forget about that second half. It's just a barrage of quick drops, overbank turns, outer banks, speed hills, wave turns, and even more overbanks. This ride puts a smile on my face every time I ride it. Now this was the wooden coaster that I was talking about that was in my top 5. I used to have this ranked one spot lower than Wonder Woman Flight of Courage, but after some considerable thinking and some re-rides, I definitely prefer this more. For some reason, these Millennium Flyer trains are way more comfortable than the ones on Apocalypse, and it has an infinitely better layout. This ride has a perfect blend of rough and smooth that it gives the ride some character. This ride just throws so much at you. A wicked first drop with really good airtime. Speed hills, high banked turns, double ups, double downs, and quick drops all make up this ride. Oh yeah, you can't forget the tunnels. Those definitely add to the experience. You also really have to get a night ride experience if you plan on riding this anytime soon. At the number 2 spot, we have Joker at Six Flags Discovery Kingdom. Oh my gosh. This ride is so different in the front compared to the back. If I had only ridden this in the back, it would definitely place behind Railblazer. But I'm way too stomached to rank it like that, so I'm only ranking my front row rides. The airtime in the front row is like normal RMC airtime. I do not get why people say it's very weak airtime, and the inversions are also really fun. I do think the zero-G stall is a bit overrated, but it's still a fun element. Literally every single airtime hill hits. And at my number 1 spot is of course Twisted Colossus. Nothing else can beat it. This is just like Railblazer or Joker, but you go around it twice. I know many people have a lot of gripes with this ride, such as the green lift hill being very long and not dueling as much, but I love trying to speculate when the blue train is going to catch up and when we're going to get a duel when I'm on the green lift hill. I always hear people say that the ride doesn't really have a standout element or something like that, but honestly, I just think that works in the ride's favor because it shows how good every single element on the ride is. Also, if you get the right ride crew, then you can actually get duels on this ride. This ride is already number 1 for me when it doesn't duel, and when it does duel, it is boosted way higher. Anyways, that's all I got for you. See you in the next one.